Hey YouTube, we are back to show you the assembly of this Nexus 7. One thing I forgot in my last video is down here at the right hand corner of this LCD there's a little foam piece. You need to make sure you transfer that from your old LCD to your new LCD to keep these connectors from touching the metal back portion of the LCD. We do need to check the edges of this bezel here, make sure there's no residual glass pieces here and that everything is put down nice and flat so the LCD is not raised. We're going to go ahead and insert the LCD into this bezel by starting on the bottom portion, sliding it nice and flat all the way down to the bottom, making sure that our ribbon connector goes back inside the LCD and pulling on it to help pull our LCD onto the bezel. We're going to stick down all of the corners and all of the sides to make sure that we get a nice tight seal on this. Just go through and run your hand across the sides to make sure that you've got it seated correctly. You can push down on the back side here as well. Make sure that the really important portions are the top and the bottom, and then double check the sides. There is a lot of lifting off the sides of these Nexus 7 new screen replacements. Just checking the corners and the sides to make sure that it's seated well. If you see anything raised or something funky, go ahead and remove it and just double check to make sure there's no glass or any raised tape below. The next we're going to do is connect this little tiny ribbon connector here. It just slides right back in to its slots. Make sure that you have the back of this lifted up. Slide your connector in so all of the gold connector portion is completely inside, and then just flip your little latch down. Here's the black tape that was left out of my other video that I had mentioned. Make sure you go ahead and put this back onto this little ribbon cable. Make sure that it stays in its slot and is not broken when you put your mid frame back on. Here's our mid frame. The double ribbon connector goes right in between the two black portions on the right hand side of the mid frame. Make sure your LCD cable does insert through the slot, as you can see right here in the video. Make sure your mid frame is in the right spots and that it is not bent. This has a little bit of flex to it, but it's much less bent than the prior LCD that we had on this device. We're going to go ahead and screw in the remove screws. We'll start in the upper corner here with the silver screws and work our way around. Now this this Nexus 7 was missing 2 screws. I'm not sure if they're all like that on the bottom side here. So I just skip every other screw on this bottom side. You'll see me leave 2 empty screw holes. Put a screw here, and then I'll skip the next screw hole and put one on the opposite side of the ribbon connector to make sure that we get a nice full contact on this side. And then moving down here, start on this side. Here's our third screw on the left side here. Now there were a lot of screws that came off this bottom portion. They can be a little tricky to remember, so I could put my speaker portion back up to see what screws I can put in before I start attaching the speaker portion back onto the device. You can see there's an empty slot here that was cut out of the speaker portion, so we can go ahead and make sure to put a screw in there. Just double check and see what else needs to be put back in before I put the speaker portion back in. We're looking pretty good. Double checking. Alright, let's put our last screw in the left-hand side here, so for the fourth on this side. Double check to make sure it's nice and stuck on here still. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is put our logic board back in. Make sure the ribbon cables connect back up to the right spot. This power and volume button connect to the top, so make sure it's outside of the logic board. And it should seat nicely. We'll go ahead and start with our black screw up by the power and volume ribbon cable connector, as that is the one different screw in this set. Alright. If I can get it to stick to my screwdriver here. There we go. Oh, maybe not. Well, apparently we'll skip that one for a second until I get less frustrated with it. Let's go ahead and put these remaining silver screws back in. Now they don't have to be extremely tight, they just need to be snug. All these screws have a little locking tape on them, or a little locking residue to make sure they don't twist out. So they don't have to be excessively hard. You just want to make sure that there's not any give in between the logic board and the mid frame. A few more screws to go. Make sure we put this one back in underneath the black tape. We'll give this black screw another go. See if it wants to be a little bit more friendly this time. I don't know what it is about this screw, but we are just not having luck with it. Alright, there we go. We're going to go ahead and slide our volume and power cable back in. And once you get it nice and straight in there, just flip the clip back down. Connect our LCD ribbon cable here. You may need to wiggle this one around just to make sure you find the right spot. It doesn't have to be extremely hard to press down, just a firm force will get it nice and quick back into its correct spot. Put these two back in, make sure they're seated nice and well, and then you'll just flip their connector back down as well. Alright, making good progress. Go ahead and put the charging ports back in. You don't want to put all the screws back into this. There are a couple that need to go in through the speaker port that you saw me kind of fiddling with earlier. Perfect. going to put this yellow ribbon cable back in that connects the power slot to the logic board. Now there's tape that sticks this down, so it can be a little sticky. So make sure you get it fully connected before you slide it into its spot. If not, your device will not properly charge. Same with the top portion up here. So I like to get it into place and in its connector before I stick it back down to the mid frame. Now we're going to go ahead and connect a layer of black tape back down. And just make sure that the metal connector right here in the middle isn't sitting on top of any chips. It should rest nice and even on the main board. We're going to put our copper foil back in. We're going to try to bend it back into its original shape just to make it a little bit easier to put back into the device. Let's start here at the top with this and then just push it down to make sure I get it seated in the correct spot back on the mid frame. And make sure you get the lip nice and square again, where it kind of folds over the device. I'll put our, no, actually let's put our speaker port back in first. Realize that I forgot to put that in before I put the copper in. You can just move it up a little bit here and slide it into its power spot. A little dental pick can help us get it into that small space there. Alright, we are looking good. And this is why I was just double checking to make sure I didn't put any of these excess screws in before I start assembling the speaker. Alright, here we go. We are almost finished actually. Go ahead and put our battery back in. And just reconnect it back into its slot. Make sure it's in there nice and well. Kind of wiggle it left and right to get it seated properly back into the device. We're just going to double check the back portion here and make sure it fits back all together. Clip it all the way down. Just going to double check the LCD. Make sure that the device will go ahead and power on for us. Make sure the side's properly clipped back in. There we go. Now what we're looking for to double check is to make sure that the digitizer is properly functioning. If not, that means that we didn't seat our ribbon cables all the way on the back side of the device. Takes a second for the device to load up. Now if you did find the disassembly or the reassembly of this video helpful, just go ahead and like it. You can subscribe to me if you want to. I have a few other options coming up. I'm actually going to replace the glass on a 13-inch MacBook Pro. Going to replace the power button on an iPhone 4. Replace a 3.5mm headphone jack on an iPhone 5. We're going to replace a screen on an iPhone 4S for Verizon. We're going to have a Galaxy S3 that I'm going to try to remove the glass and LCD off, do a complete mid-body switch on. So if you have any of those devices that you're interested in, go ahead and subscribe to me. I do plan on releasing a lot more if I can get my hands on the devices. If you do have one that I haven't made a video on yet, you can just message me or talk to me. It would be a possibility for me to fix it for you for just the cost of parts. So I can make a how-to video on it. Everything seems to be working well. Sometimes the Nexus 7 is a little bit slow upon load up. You can see that the touchscreen is working. It looks nice and clean. So, if you like the video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to me, and I will see you guys on my next video. Thanks for watching.